Uh, Welcome back, everybody. Finally getting to go over a little bit of stuff here on the 63 Chevy. I know there's a few people from the last video that were looking at getting a little more information on chopping off the hardtop and what is going on with taking it from a 4-door down to a 2-door. So I'll do my best to go over and explain what we've done so far and the problems that we've run into. This is the first time doing this for me all the way through. I have helped in the previous shop that I worked at do this a few times here and there, but yeah, this is kind of a first for us, so we'll let you know the best of what we can, of what we've ran into, and any problems. And if anybody has any information they'd like to add or help direct us in the right way, you're welcome to leave any comments down below and let us know what you know. But yeah, this has been an interesting project, been fun. And yeah, go over a few things here. So the first thing that should probably be mentioned is the body mounting points on this car. The frame is technically an X-frame on this, and it goes from corner to corner, meets in the middle, which means there is a lack of body mounts that run along the sides of the car. Not a problem when you have a hardtop that goes along to the car and connects all of your pillars and everything, keeping the body rigid. It all works together. But when you start chopping things up, this is where you're going to run into problems. Especially if any of your body mounts happen to be compromised or rusted in any way. You're just going to lose structure, rigidity, all that kind of stuff. And that is actually what we are dealing with a bit with this car. For instance, if we can see it, right in behind here, we're in behind that metal. You can see it's resting in the corner already. One of the body mounts in there is basically gone. Let's see if we can see this here. Yeah. Gone. Absolutely gone. So what we run into is the body moving a lot now. As soon as we cut the roof off, there's definitely a fair bit of movement in the body. We have picked up some frame material, and we are going to build some extra structure that comes out from the X-frame, runs all along the rocker of the car, and then back into the frame. We're going to tie it all together, make things a lot more solid and rigid, which is also going to work with the hydraulic setup, and just be able to make the car perform a lot better. And it kind of solves a few problems for us, because otherwise there's literally nothing in that section of the car kind of holding things together. So we noticed right away that with only a very little amount of movement of even someone just kind of sitting in the chair or the seat and moving around a little bit, you can see the body line and the gap just move a fair bit in the car. So one thing, if you're going to take your hardtop off your car, especially this model, you're going to have a lot of movement in the frame, so you're going to, or in the body, so you're going to be looking into making extra body mounts and reinforcing things. So for instance, these pillars are just kind of tacked in and just welded in the bottom a little bit, and without the rest of the structure, they're actually fairly movable. You pretty much lose the use of your doors properly almost right away. They do not like to close properly at all. You got to hold it back, push forward. So right off the bat, structure is needed. Body mounts, we haven't quite got to how we're going to tie everything in, so we'll make a video of that later on. But yeah, body mounts and a lot of support for this. So if you're just keeping it a 4-door, you're going to have to build inner structure of some sort, some bracing down here. Even if you end up running something straight down and make a frame or a mount down below. Yeah, thankfully we're making it into a 2-door, So we're kind of eliminating this problem. Because just to even open the back door, this pillar just is all over the place. So it makes it almost impossible to open this door at all. So if we were going to keep it a 4-door, we'd be able to show you a little footage of that, but sadly we're not. Thankfully, welding the other door into the back of the car solves a fair bit of problems for us. Makes it nice and solid. It does add a little bit of rigidity to the body of the car, but not enough for us. Like, you can still get a fair bit of movement in here, especially when we're using the hydraulics, moving the car up and down, side to side. You can just see that just bend and twist all over the place. And no, we don't want that. We want to be able to actually use this car properly without just completely annihilating the whole frame and body. So eventually we will be building a body mount for this corner, adding a little bit more extra steel, doing whatever we can, just kind of work throughout. We'll keep people up to date with that as we go along. As far as actually cutting the roof off, that was the easy part. I think I found a little bit of footage and I can show Tony and I kind of hacking into that, but all we really did was just made a straight line across by the windshield. And it's always easier to start bigger and cut a little bit more as you go to make things nice and clean. So we came about, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches out from the windshield, and we're probably going to cut it back a fair bit so it kind of lines up with the little side window of the door, and we'll be able to clean that up. But pretty much all we did, you can even still see some of the leftover tape, is we just made a nice straight tape line across both sides. Did plan to start just behind the pinch weld where it was only a single sheet or a single layer of metal, so it made it a little bit easier to cut the roof off. So our second cut here, when we go back in a little bit, is going to be kind of fun, but that's all right. We'll cut it back, we'll put in some nice sheet metal, we'll get it all cleaned up and smoothed around, painted. Same with all the gaps in here, because we're probably not going to have any windows. Same with the pillar, we just made a line, made it flush with the tops of the doors, cut there. As far as the sides going up, we had to, of course, remove the back window. And then pretty much just followed the body line right along and just got the Sawzall in there, cut straight across. There was a little bit of reinforcement in here that was just a bit of a pain in the butt to get through. But all in all, that wasn't too bad. So a few Sawzall cuts there and there, pillar and pillar. And this didn't even take that long, and I think probably within 15 minutes, 20 minutes, we were pulling the whole roof off the car. It did get towed here and can drive around, so it might be weak and the doors and stuff move, but it's not so bad that we can't actually maneuver the car, drive it around, stuff like that. So thankfully it didn't just completely fall apart on us. If you know what you're gonna be encountering, you might want to do a little bit of supporting and bracing, making sure nothing moves on you. But yeah, be careful if you're using a jack underneath the side of the car and you're lifting anywhere on the frame or on the body, because it will definitely twist and contort. I had this door gap a little bit better when I first built this, but just from us moving the car around and using the jack on one of the corners, it's actually pulled this body line out, or this door gap out. I'm gonna have to adjust that a bit, which is why we put a halt on everything and are getting ready to build the frame, because we want this to be as solid as possible before making the doors perfect and doing all the body work and all the paint. We really don't want to twist the car too bad. But yeah, the roof is easy. Just hack away at it, make a nice couple straight lines, and you can have it off in no time. But the steps that follow are most likely going to be decently long and involved, trying to get some support in that beam. Yeah, that's the best I can tell you as far as the roof goes. I know you can buy some of the soft top mechanisms and try to convert it into a full soft top so you're not stuck driving it in only good weather. But for right now, I think we are sticking with a permanent convertible. And we'll just have to be careful of which days we go out for a cruise. But yeah, we left the front windshield in. We just, was trying to be nice enough and, took enough time that we didn't damage that in any way. And yeah, it was kind of an interesting and really fun day. I'd always wanted to chop a roof off a car and finally got a chance to do it. And then as far as the doors go, we'll cover that in a second. Yeah, hopefully that helps you before any of you get into chopping your roof off. Just to let you know, you lose a lot of the structure for your doors and your pillars, like in a big way. But yeah, because I don't believe there are any body mounts that actually run underneath the car. They are pretty much, the frame goes into the X in the center and then comes back out by the wheels, and you have pretty much no body mounts at all under this side of the car. It's just all floor pan. They have a couple of pieces in there that they try to use as support, but it's pretty weak. So we're hopefully going to add a frame rail right along and up underneath here, tied into the rocker, try to hide it the best we can. Might have to cut up the floor a little bit, but we're going to add in a bunch of support so this doesn't go anywhere. Be nice and solid.
Oh, boys, my bad.
Yeah, that's sick. Okay, so as far as the doors go, here is the best I can tell you. First thing I started out with was looking at body lines. I'm not quite set up to actually form some of my own panels myself, so I needed to be very careful on where I took the metal out of the rear door and put it into the front door, because I wanted the body lines to line up the best that I possibly could. If you look at the top here, a lot of it is consistent in its width from body line to body line, but as you go across the door, it does widen and change in a few spots. Front of the door and back of the rear door, it changes size. So I made a lot of measurements and I found the best spot that I could cut the metal out where it was the same on both. Also wanted to make sure that where you're actually cutting into the door and taking parts out of, it lines up nice and straight. You get a full piece all the way down to the bottom. You're not cutting part of a corner off or something of that nature. Same thing in here. I cut basically just behind the curve in the bottom of the door, so that way you get the nice fullest section that you possibly can to transfer over into the other door. Obviously a lot of your stuff on the inside isn't going to line up as nice as you might like, but I'll make that look the best that I possibly can, at least the bottoms. still line up, and I have, you know, a nice door piece that I can put some rubber on or whatever, and at least still have a seal against the body of the car. Definitely, you know, had to move the pillar back the exact same distance that was taken out of the door. So whatever your measurement is for how much you decide to take out will be the exact same amount that you know, try to move your pillar back. I believe, where is it here? We took 7.5 inches out of the door. Is that right? I think so. And that gave us just the proper alignment for where the pillar looks like it should sit, right behind the seat. There's been a few recommendations. Some people have said 6, some people said 8. We just kind of kept moving things back and forth and came up with 7.5. We think that, you know, seems to look all right. Now, something we didn't take into account is you can buy the trim for a Chevy Impala for a 2-door. It would probably be not a bad idea to find out how long that piece of door trim is and maybe make your door to the exact length of that piece of trim. But that's all right. We didn't take that into account. So when it comes time to get some trim, we might have to alter a couple of pieces. I did think about, you know, finding out the measurement and taking this little piece out of the door and redoing all the doors and everything. But you know what? I think we're just going to leave it as is. We like where everything lines up. And I don't know, hopefully that's the same length as the piece of trim that we can order. But you might want to take that into account. If you do plan on putting trim on your car, maybe find out what that length of trim is for the door and make that the exact length of a 2-door piece of trim. Might make your life a lot easier in the end. Because I have a weird feeling that when we get right down to it, one piece is just going to like sit over a little bit and then the other one's going to be too short or something, and all we had to do was alter this by like 3/4 of an inch. But that's all right. Learn as we go. We'll deal with that problem when it comes. Now another thing, when you actually go to mark out your lines. So you know, you've gone, you've figured out where you want to cut, you have the right distances, you know, you've checked in between each body line and the distance and all that kind of stuff, and you find your nice area that you'd like to cut out. Well, now how do you mark out a proper line? Okay, the best that I can explain, let's see, where it is, yeah. All right, try to make your first line completely square off of a body line. So that way you have at least your first line that you mark out on the car is nice and straight and square to everything. That's going to give you the nicest and easiest platform to line up body lines after and cut. Now, from there, you want to make sure that all your other lines are perfectly straight that are going to match this one. If you cut this one straight, but then you happen to start cutting into your rear door and it's on maybe like a little bit of an angle, well, your panels aren't going to line up so nice. So what I did when the car was still perfectly set up as a 4-door, I had everything shut and closed. I think I even welded the door gap together just to make sure nothing would move when I was cutting it. And once I made the first line with a nice piece of tape, everything got measured off of that line, just to make sure that all the measurements and everything were parallel and met up nice and straight. And then after I made the cuts, it seemed to work out pretty good. Some of my gaps are a little bigger and then a little smaller. Like I said, haven't actually done this before. But take the time and think things through, and make sure that you can get your lines as parallel and square as you possibly can. You know, measure 2 or 3 or 4 times and cut once. From there, you know, get to have a little bit of fun trying to line the body lines back up. I used not my ruler, but I went and got a flat piece of square tubing, and I pretty much, once I came to neat things back up, I put a couple of tack welds with the bar on the body line, and then I lined up the other door on the body line and put a couple of tack welds, and I could use straight bar to keep body lines lined up when fitting everything, just to kind of help out. I don't know, let's see here. The pillar was fun to do. Definitely had a few spot welds to drill out. I had to cut a little piece out of the corner of this because it actually bulged in a little bit and it didn't slide back properly, so we had to cut a little piece out of the corner of this. Slid it back to 7.5 inches, same from the door. I had made some measurements, can't remember what it was exactly, but I had measured exactly what kind of an angle we were looking at, that we'd want that to be in, to make sure that the door meets up with it properly. So, you know, you don't want your pillar too far one way or the other. So I think I had held my square on here. Let's see, where'd that go? I had held a square on the body line, and then I went up the square, and let's see, I maybe went to 16 or 18 inches, and from the 18-inch mark or 16-inch mark, I would have measured, you know, it's 2.25 inches or whatever from this edge to this edge, and then that way I know what the angle is from square. So when I moved the pillar back, I just moved the square back, did the same thing, went up to whatever mark I chose on the square and lined up with the edge of the inner door jamb. I would just duplicate the same measurement, and that way I'd have the same angle, and everything seemed to line up not too bad. So keep an eye on the angle of your door jamb, exactly how far it kind of sits into the car, so you want to mimic that the best as possible. Putting on the rear door was nice to help, you know, keep everything in place. I know there's probably a lot of, you know, better, proper ways to do this, but we left the hinges and everything right on. We literally just bolted the door right back on. We closed it into the rear hitch, or the rear door latch, and everything's still lined up, so we're just going to stick with that and then just start welding the door in. We'll weld the whole outside, the whole bottom, replace any rust or any damage, weld up the whole seam. We'll weld a lot of this in, put a whole plate and panel across the top of that, smooth that all out, put a panel across there, or, you know, clean all that up. We're going to fill in this whole door jamb with a nice clean sheet, make everything look nice and smooth. Try to make it look as OEM as possible. Same with over here. Just weld everything up, clean it all, keep it nice and straight, body work. But yeah, that's that's kind of the route that we took. Just measure, really think things through. Try to keep those lines as absolutely straight to each other as you possibly can. It'll make your life a lot easier later on. You know, double, triple check your measurements. Make sure you know it's going to sit where you want it to be on the car. I'm trying to remember what the actual length of our door ended up being, which I will run and grab a tape measure and I can let you know exactly what we decided to make the door for length. But yeah, that's the approach we took. Try to find a really nice spot, make sure your body lines match up, you know, think things through a lot. The rear door we took completely off, and I cut and took the section out and welded it back together on the table. The front door we actually left on, and I cut it in half and did the sectioning kind of right on the car. I first added this piece into this piece just sitting on the table, and then brought it over and we used the pieces of metal that were welded onto the body line to kind of hold this in place, get everything straight, and we actually welded this right on while the door was on the car. So we could test it, make sure it was, you know, in line with the body line. Something that was a little bit nice and easy to help out is when we lifted this section, this little piece that was built, we clicked it right into the door latch, even though it wasn't actually welded or attached, but we clicked it into the door latch, put a little tack weld there, and there's another spot down here somewhere we did a little tack weld, just to keep the door in alignment with the back. And then from there we started kind of fitting up everything and making sure that the body line actually lined up. And yeah, so half of it was built kind of on the car. But yeah, let me go find a tape measure. Okay. So yeah, 7.5 is exactly what we cut and moved over from the door, from the rear to the front. And our actual door measurement right now from the corner of the body line is we are at just a smidge under 46 inches. And pretty happy with that. Now that we don't, now that we're putting, wow, since we're not putting glass back in here, we don't have to worry about the window mechanism or anything. We just completely took out the window mechanism and all. But the one thing we're gonna have to put back in is obviously the door latch so we can open it up. The rod that goes from the handle to the latch is obviously not going to be the right length anymore, so we're going to have to cut that in half, add a small section, most likely 7.5 inches, and there we'll have a rod that'll actually be able to open the door from the inside. Yeah, other than that, we've got a little bit of rust down there, so I'll have to make a patch panel. That corner is starting to bulge and rust out, so I'm going to probably cut that out afterwards. But yeah, we've, once again, never done this before, so I'm not 100% sure if just closing the door and welding up the seams is going to work over time. Not 100% sure, yeah, if that's going to crack in the future. I'm going to try to fill it in the best that I can, inside and out, just add support everywhere possible. You know, do some welding on the inside. We'll remove all the seats and everything, put down a welding mat, and we will close all this up the best as possible. If the gaps are too big, we'll build panels. But this is all of this is, it's all going to be welded in, all structurally done. I might even add in a little bit of support down here, just because I really don't want this to move over time. I'd hate to lose a good working door and stuff like that. But yeah, that'll come in the future. It's going to slowly get done throughout the winter. You know, we're trying to work on this in between our jobs and stuff like that, so we only get, you know, the weekends to kind of work on it if we have time. But hopefully we can keep everybody up to date throughout the winter and have a rad looking lowrider for the summer. That's our hopes and goals. Gonna shoot you out another video on what we've been doing in the trunk. Just the whole battery setup and all that kind of stuff. So had to do a little patchwork in there, add a panel in. There's a giant hole in the floor, or in the bottom, so we had to work on that before putting up the setup. We've got some good old high-low pumps in here. From what I understand, that is the OG hydraulic pumps to have in your car, and they are working fabulous. Absolutely no problem. Got to throw the charger back on, get some juice going, keep these bad boys charged up. But so far everything's been working really nice. Lots of good trunk space. The installation of the rams and everything wasn't too bad. The front's gonna need a little bit of work. The coils don't quite fit the way we would like. But yeah, we'll show you all that later. So hopefully for you guys out there watching, that maybe covers a few things that you were, hoping to find out. By all means, add any, drop a question or whatever down below. I'll answer whatever I can. And if I don't know the answer, hell, I'll test it out. I'll see what we can figure out, and we can all do this together. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's everything that I can think of. But yeah, hopefully you guys learned a little bit, and enjoy your day. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.